What's going on, folks? It's your friendly neighborhood Professor Cag, swinging through the hallways, highways, and byways, bringing another inside edition of In the Class with Cag to you, right to your eyes and ears. Um, this is going to be a relatively short In the Class with Cag session. I'm going to take a pause for the cause really briefly and just send out a few quick messages. Um, I don't know where the commercial button is here, so I will definitely make sure to send these messages out. Please excuse the hotel background, folks. I'll probably end up repeating this a couple of times, but please excuse the hotel background, folks. I did not run away. It's right now. I'm out of town, out of state, and just got finished presenting on some pretty cool ideas for composition to a crowd, an audience of other composition instructors from all across the nation. So it was very cool. Let me see here. All right. We will be right back after this quick commercial break, right after these messages. For those of you who are watching this as a recording, I'm actually not going to stop recording. I'm going to still be here. I'm just going to be sending out some messages right quick. Okay. Inbox. Vanessa, what's going on? How you doing? It's good to see you. I'm glad you could join us or join me. I think you're probably the only one who's joined us right now. This is going to be just like a relatively quick check-in. Oh snap, Miss Chandra, what's happening? How you doing? Good to see you. I'm doing well, Vanessa. I'm doing very well. I probably look like I'm very tired right now. If I do, my apologies. I usually have a better face forward, but um, uh, I am actually out of town. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I just got finished giving a talk, a presentation to some colleagues of mine from all across the nation. I was presenting to some of my colleagues on hip hop composition and academic knowledge of self, which is kind of whenever y'all as students have a project due at the end of the semester and you have to give a presentation in front of like the class. um, it's not the same, but that's the closest thing that I can actually kind of, parallel that I could draw between where I'm at and what I was just doing. And I think some of the things that y'all are a lot more familiar with. Um, but suffice it to say, that's why you see the hotel room background right now. I am just a little bit out of town. We have to do that. Well, thankfully enough, we don't have to do that. I think that y'all are going to be very. It's probably y'all are probably more thankful than I am about not having to do that. So no, don't worry, and you can breathe again. So no, 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 no. But I was just trying to just illustrate the picture. It's a really huge conference. There probably like a couple thousand people who are here right now, and they're breathe, deep breaths, slow. But probably like a couple thousand people who are here, just total at the conference. I think and there are multiple talks. There's so many different people who are giving talks and presentations and things like that. Um, but this is really I I sympathize with being a student. I remember what it was like for me when I was in undergrad, or even beyond undergrad, when I was just like in high school. Some of the things that professors may or may not have done. I think my imagination of what professors did, and how hard things actually seemed, was probably it was young and it was underdeveloped. I did not know what that was, so I just colored in and filled in the blanks with what it is that I ended up having to do. Yo, what's up, man? How you doing? So the idea of having like a talk and presentations and things like that, that was something that was just, it was so far from my own kind of frame of reference. I really didn't have an understanding about it. Hang tight one quick second, y'all. I'm gonna be right back. Let me pause this for a second. Thank you, Miss Vanessa, for not calling it Kim Possible. That is certainly a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers little text message thing. My little cousin asked me, "Oh, is that Kim Possible?" I felt so offended. I took that very personally. Thank you for getting it right. Hang tight one second, y'all. I'll be right And we're back, folks. All right. So, like I mentioned, this is not going to be necessarily long, very long. I do want to make sure that I can answer anybody's questions, um, especially for this week. I know this week we have week 5. So let me actually go and share my screen, and I want to walk y'all through key parts of week 5. Let me also switch over to the you all may actually have in regards to we should be finished chapter 2 this particular week. And also, too, what I want to keep on everybody's radar is that you should, as you're reading through Nickel and Dime, highlight and or underline key quotes in different colors. Okay, just like how we mentioned last week, that illustrate examples, Barbara Ehrenreich's examples of either ethos, logos, and or pathos. Really, you want to identify examples, key quotes that demonstrate all three. Okay. Okay, hopefully y'all see my screen. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Give me a thumbs up in the chat right quick. Chat. Can y'all for real see my screen? All right, folks. So let's take a dive. Course module number 5. So we're going to start off this particular week. I'm just going to give an overview of it. And then any question that you all have, please just drop them on in the chat. I can't see the chat right now, but please feel free to drop your questions in the chat right now, or as I just kind of move through this overview. So for this particular week, we're starting off with a PowerPoint. I just moved the PowerPoint for how to write a rhetorical analysis all the way up to the top, to the front of the module, and really kind of I didn't want to bury. So if you read, review, and take notes on the how to write a rhetorical analysis PowerPoint, that'll definitely put you in the proper position to understand what the whole point of this entire module will build towards. And then moving on from that, right, the next step or the next post in just after the how to write a rhetorical analysis PowerPoint, you'll actually find a chapter from the textbook written arguments, um, or the textbook entitled Writing Arguments, from chapter 8, which gives a thorough analysis and breakdown of some of the key components, just the important vocabulary words that go into this thing that we're doing called rhetorical analysis. All right. So you certainly want to go through and reread that chapter. And you also want to make sure that you take notes on that particular chapter and get familiar with the vocabulary that's there. Part of the reason why I want you all to actually get familiar with the vocabulary is not only because it'll pop up on our midterms and things like that, some of the check-in quizzes that we have, as well as the discussion boards, but also too because some of the key vocabulary terms that are in that chapter are each and every one of them are important concepts that will tie into this course or lesson module that we have. All right. So I'm gonna take a pause real quick and see if we have anything going on in the chat. Okay. All right, folks, don't be scared. Drop them in as we go through it. Drop them in as we go through it. Okay. So fast forward and moving on. The next section in this particular module is the introduction to rhetorical analysis. And this is actually a section that's divided into 5 parts. So one, you have the introduction to rhetorical analysis, in which you'll see another another selected reading. You certainly want to actually go through this reading and take notes on it. Again, part of the reason why you want to take notes is not only because this is where these are important concepts, but also too because This is where you'll begin to develop, or at least one of the resources that you could use to create your own questions for our class activity at the end of the module for module 5. All right. And remember for that module there, right, submitting, the submission form for midterm exam questions. It's very important that you all complete this particular assignment because it actually serves as a way for us to craft and compose your midterm questions. Remember to follow the instructions very carefully on that assignment once you. But these readings that you see are resources for you to actually develop the questions and the answers that you could use to craft your easy, medium, and hard level questions that will ultimately get selected by myself to make up your midterm exam. All right, folks. All right. So that's going to be our introduction into rhetorical analysis. So it's going to give us a very thorough breakdown history of rhetorical analysis, a brief history of rhetorical analysis, but more so, it's going to examine and explore how it functions. Number two, dives in and gives us an overview of the rhetorical situation. Okay. And that we can use in order to just kind of keep in mind some of the basic components of the rhetorical situation. And that acronym, if you don't already have it down, I want you all to write this down, right? It's CREAM, okay? CREAM, cream in a rhetorical sense, okay? CREAM in a rhetorical sense refers to the 5 components of the rhetorical situation: context, rhetor, exigence, audience, and the message. All right. The context in the rhetorical situation is it's certainly the largest component of that 5-part structure. However, it's also too one of the most crucial components of that 5-part structure. If for no other reason than because it explores the social and environmental factors that occur surrounding the composition of a particular message. So here I want us to actually think about those moments in Barbara Ehrenreich's book, Nickel and Dimed. And I also want you to look to make connections between um, the uh, the documentaries that we've been reviewing. So the corporation, um, to a lesser degree and extent, Real Women Have Curves. That particular film does as much bearing on this particular module and unit. However, the documentary entitled "The Corporation" certainly does. Okay, and then are also a variety of different clips that you'll find throughout this entire um, learning module here. Okay. So I want you all to actually look at those video clips, look at those that documentary, and I want for you to make the way that you can actually make the most use out of it is by focusing on um, the historical, social, and economic events and artifacts that the video clips and that the documentary highlight for us. The reason because part of what we have to actually explore, part of what we are seeking to understand within as we're learning about context, right? Part of what we're going to understand and develop here is contextual awareness, right? Contextual awareness is one of the most important elements to a rhetorical analysis. It's perhaps maybe just important textual analysis in and of itself, but contextual awareness helps us to understand what was going on surrounding the composition of a particular text, what was happening in the environment of the author's world at the time that they were composing that text, and what might have even led to them uh, composing that text in the first place. Having a thorough understanding of the social, historical, and in some cases, right, even the political and the economic contexts that are surrounding a particular text will certainly help to reveal that for us. Okay. Next section is the critical summary, and this actually pivots on the heels of our um, uh, activities from last week entitled the rhetorical précis, right? So the rhetorical précis, very simple, straightforward technique to helping us write a critical summary of the persuasive elements of a particular text. It helps us to formulate and organize our thoughts by focusing in on who the audience is, what the writer's purpose was, and also to the means by which the author actually made their point persuasive. Okay, so that's what you'll find here is just a quick, truncated version of the rhetorical précis. Okay. Section number 4, composing the body paragraphs, right? So in a rhetorical analysis, some of you may have already kind of peep flow here, right? Recognize that this is a learning module that's actually organized based on in 5 parts. These parts here kind of sort of look like or sound like an essay. If you've made that connection, then you've certainly gotten on good foot. Okay. This is certainly organized in a way that mirrors the general or common outline for a rhetorical analysis. So, in section number 4, we're focusing in on how to compose the body sections, the body paragraph of a rhetorical analysis. And here we dive on into the two important aspects of rhetorical analysis, rather the second of the two important aspects of rhetorical analysis, which is the textual analysis. Part of the reason why I want for you all to actually focus very intentionally and deliberately on underlining key quotes that demonstrate Barbara Ehrenreich's use of ethos and pathos according to the Aristotelian appeals chart. You will find the Aristotelian appeals chart right here underneath the link. The reason why I want you all to actually focus on that is because that's what's going to comprise the bulk of this particular section. Here's the rhetorical appeals, or excuse me, the Aristotelian appeals chart. Notice that there's a file down here for you to download directly to your computer, right? A little slightly different from this, but all the content is the same. So don't worry too much. Files downloaded. The main important thing is that you want to focus on understanding what ethos, logos, and pathos mean, and you also want to understand how they function, right? So here are some examples of different types of, you also understand what the different types of each rhetorical appeal look like, right? So for logos, here we have some examples which cover the range of, scientific facts, indicated meanings and reasonings, definition, factual statistics, data, quotes, citations specifically from experts, right? And also two personal anecdotes. That's going to be a very big one. Some types of ethos include the author's profession and or background, right? The degree to which the author actually appears not only sincere, knowledgeable, right, and also too fair-minded. Fair-minded doesn't necessarily mean both sides. Rather, fair-minded means that they can see the various positions that exist beyond their own worldview, right? They don't just quite simply stick with their own worldview. They actually draw on, or rather observe, what the experiences are of others, and then they also too discuss or talk with them or engage with them. And from that dialogue, from that engagement, they pull out, right, what it is that they actually heard the other person say, right, and compile new understanding, new positions, right, that exist beyond the author's own positions and also worldviews. Okay, that's what it more. So that's just a. What it more. So that's just a. Um, what it means fair-minded. Also, too, right, their appropriate use of vocabulary, correct grammar, professional formatting, so on and so forth. Some types and examples of pathos, right? Emotionally loaded language, particularly emotional examples, especially those examples where the author might actually using various kinds of emotional tones. They won't use various kinds of emotional tones all at once. They're going to actually use them in these very strategic ways, right? Some moments they might actually use words and language to actually convey an idea or a particular point about, and here I'm thinking specifically of Barbara Ehrenreich, right, where she might actually use humor in order to actually make a point about Gail. But then she might actually talk about Eddie or Claude, right, in some of the most, in a rather kind of sad way, right? What we want to do as whenever we notice those things, we want to underline them, right? Again, each one of these examples of rhetorical appeals should be represented by an underline that's in a different color, right? So pathos, I'm just going to throw this out there, right? Y'all don't have to follow this. You can use whatever color it is that you want to, right? But pathos in green, ethos in pink, logos in black, right? Okay, right. So if observing some moments throughout the text where she's using or she's telling Gail's story, I want to actually underline where the most important parts, not the entire line, the parts in which she's using emotionally loaded language. Okay, why? It's to the other part of what's important for us to understand how each and every one of these rhetorical appeals function, right? So we have to understand how logos, ethos, and also pathos function, the way that we can actually observe how it functions, or at least develop a ground level understanding of how ethos, logos, pathos is by each one of these has on the audience, and also how to talk about it. So the combination of these two elements help us to build a ethos, logos, and pathos function, specifically this section here on autonomy, right? So I would certainly pay very close attention um, to that handout. Study that handout. Again, that is certainly fair game for the composition of your midterm questions. You can draw your questions and answers from that sheet there specifically. It's actually pretty brilliant if you do. And then lastly but not least, there's a section in here on how to compose an effective conclusion, followed quickly and swiftly by about 3 videos on MLA format. Okay. So for this particular essay that we have coming up, which is running assignment number 2, it's not due until um, just off the top of my head, I could be very, very wrong about this. I'm just going off the top of my head. Remember, y'all, I'm out of town. I'm at a conference. So I don't have all of my materials right here, right with me. But I do believe that it's due on March 22nd. Okay. Don't quote me on that. Just double check the assignment itself, or rather, excuse me, the course schedule. Okay. And you'll know specifically when it is. But for this particular essay, what we're focusing here on is composing a rhetorical analysis. But it's important for us, as we're composing a rhetorical analysis, we have to quote. Why? Because we have to talk about the ways in which this author, Barbara Ehrenreich, is using language persuasively. So that means that we're going to have to quote her. If we're going to have to quote her, that means that we have to cite where it is that we got the quotes from. That is very close attention, take notes, study, and repeatedly go over this particular section right here entitled MLA Format, a basic overview. All right. Chat, I'm going to take a look at the questions in the chat right now. Okay. Oh, shoot. Yes, it's pixelated. Yes, he keeps breaking up. I'm sorry. Blame my trashy hotel Wi-Fi for this. Error more than one ingestion using primary. Send one stream to the primary. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to stop sharing. Can y'all see me? Is that possible? Give me a thumbs up if you can see me now. Uh-uh. Can y'all see me? Hear me? View me? Chat? Also, I have to say cream, cash rules everything around me. Go ahead on and say it. You know what? That's not even, don't even worry about it. Okay, cool, great, perfect, excellent. I'm so glad that y'all can see me. That's not a bad connection to make. As a matter of fact, that's a brilliant connection to make, Miss Vanessa. That is certainly where that concept, or rather acronym comes from, right? It does certainly come from the Wu-Tang Clan. And that is not by accident that I remixed that acronym for a rhetorical analysis context. Um, Later, once we actually get beyond this unit, will cream, cash rules everything around me, will indeed resurface. However, for right now, before we actually kind of get there, right, the elements in which we are exploring for rhetorical analysis is still connected to our conversation that we've started from module one or week one, where our first assignment was to read the Riz's Tao of Wu, and through which we got to see an example of how memoirs work, how they function, right? By reading the Riz's Tao of Wu. That's not by accident. And it's also not by accident that I've also continued on with a Wu Tang metaphor in module number two, right? It's just that the only difference here is that it doesn't actually mean, or I don't mean it from a hip hop cultural context. Specifically using CREAM as an acronym to help us to remember the elements, the key important elements of the rhetorical situation: context, rhetor, exigence, audience, message. Those five key components also, too, just happen to actually connect with the very foundational hip hop worldview, otherwise known as CREAM. So that's not by accident. Excellent connection. Excellent connection. Any questions on module 4 this week? Course module 5, folks. Chat. Talk to me. If you notice also too, right? I have not stopped um, integrating the certain components, figures, talkers, speakers, authors from hip hop culture. Um, um, in our course learning modules. If you notice that on the section um, focused on one of the two important aspects of rhetorical analysis, contextual analysis, if you notice, there's a clip from Jay-Z in a conversation with Cornel West and Paul Holdenberger at the New York Public Library, where Jay-Z is actually breaking down the importance and the significance of developing contextual awareness. Right? Again, it's not by accident. Why? Because hip hop certainly serves as a bridge to connect our personal experiences to these academic concepts that are to be learned. So if you're thinking that way, right, you just have kind of like, if a connection kind of has to walk across the forefront of your mind, that's great. Excellent. Keep thinking like that. And I want you to actually do more of that, right? But I want you to be intentional about tying together, making connections between the various texts and readings and films and clips that we actually that we get introduced to throughout these various learning modules. Okay, be intentional about making the connections, folks. No question for you, Miss Chandra. You solid? Looks like I think I had Turtle Puppet. Okay, Turtle Puppet 7604. What's happening? Do I have a Sandra in here too? Okay. I have Sandra and Chandra. Hello, folks. Sandra and Chandra. Any questions? All right. All right. All right. Okay. All right. Solid. Okay. All right. Cool. 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 Well, folks, this here is all that I wanted to actually go over just for today's. Oh, excuse me. One more thing. Oh my goodness. The activities. I want to go over the activities really briefly. There we go. Okay. All right. So you have 3 activities that you will be submitting by March 8th, this Sunday, as a matter of fact. The first will be a collection of 10 questions and answers that you would expect to see on the midterm exam. You are certainly supposed to actually derive these questions, rather shape these, organize these questions into three different categories: easy, medium, hard. Okay. Very clean, simple rubric that I can actually use to demonstrate this for each and every one of you all. So, first and foremost, the instructions are right here. Using the chart below, this is a chart called Bloom's Taxonomy. Create a set of 10 questions and answers based on the understanding written arguments, readings. Exclude any Silco, any readings entitled the Silco readings, right? Exclude those. Do not include anything about the Silco readings from there, okay? Um, I want you to derive a set of 10 questions and answers, and the questions should be divided as follows: three easy questions, three medium, four hard. All right. Now, what exactly does CAG mean when he says easy, medium questions? Well, I'm glad you asked, chat. So, what CAG means is completely entangled and wrapped up in this Bloom's taxonomy chart. So easy questions are going to be questions that are formulated using the template that comes from knowledge and comprehension section of the Bloom's taxonomy. So let's scroll right on down here. You'll see critical thinking skills. This is a type of critical thinking framework, and you'll see level 1, level 2, level 3, along with 6. Taxonomy is divided into 6 different levels or 6 different categories. Um, the Each of which gain complexity and to a degree, right? A certain degree of difficulty, the more levels that you actually move up. Okay. So for easy questions ask questions that come from recall, right? Or memory. So those are questions that are going to be formulated using the template that's provided here under section 1, knowledge, identification, and recall of information, as well as the second level, attention, organization and selection of facts and ideas, right? So you can use some of these words, these sentence starters that are provided here to help you to generate your questions, right? Your three easy questions from sections or levels 1 and 2. Levels 3 and 4 indicate a level question that helps us to move through right on along Bloom's taxonomy to level 3, the level of application, right? The application of knowledge, rules, facts, and principles. Okay. And again, you can certainly use the template that's provided here to help to organize your questions, as well as analysis, right? Where you're starting with small. So part of the way that I can think about this is just as an often example, right? List and describe the components or situation, right? For excellence on this message. Again, if you read through course module number 5, you'll see exactly what the definition is for each one of those elements, folks. All right. So that would be an example of a kind of medium question. List and describe, right, the components of the rhetorical situation. List and describe the components of a rhetorical précis, right? List and describe, right? Something to that effect, right? That just to kind of give you, like an example of how that would actually go. Right? See here, you see the language represented. What are the parts or features of the rhetorical pressing, right? Outline a map of the rhetorical pressing, right? Something to that effect. Okay, right, folks. Um, List and describe, or how does ethos compare excuse me, how does pathos compare with logos, right? Those are some of the, I'll just pull that from right here, right? Those are some of the questions that you can actually ask. Okay, folks. All right. So now, lastly but not leastly, right, the hard section or the hard questions are going to come from as we advance on up through level 5 and level 6 of Bloom's taxonomy, where we're advancing through the synthesis level, right? Where we combine ideas to form a new whole, right? So, and on through the level of evaluation where we begin to distill from our application and from our synthesis, um, um, a kind of opinion, a judgment, or even a decision, right? So, a position, is really what you're up to, what you're ultimately formulating here are questions, right? Can low wage workers survive on minimum wage salaries, right? Does Barbara Ehrenreich um, give fair attention, right, to the experiences of her? Those are examples of the kind of harder level, okay, right? An example of how you can formulate those questions. The second part, right, is kind of a repeat um, of the question that comes above, right? So, but the only difference here is that you are using the chart below to create another set of 10 questions and answers for the midterm that's based on the readings and PowerPoint presentations that are provided under weeks 4 and 5, excluding the activities. Okay. So you're going to come up with two sets of 10 questions. The first set is going to be based on the understanding written arguments, right, excluding the so-called readings. And then the second set is going to be any of the readings and PowerPoints from weeks 4 and 5. So total, you'll be producing 20 questions, right? Two sets of 10 with questions and answers. That gives me plenty of material to actually go through. So that gives me plenty of material to actually go through so that way I can pull the best questions from each one of you all and your classmates. All right. Okay. The next activity that is due this Sunday is the dialectical journal. And I believe last week we actually discussed the dialectical journal. I also discussed it in YouTube Live. So you can feel free to go back and review either one of those um, conversations that were had there. Discussion board number 5 is it's a film that actually helps. It's important for you to actually watch this film, especially in preparation for your writing assignment number 2. Okay. This film is going to be more applicable for the essay that you're going to write because it helps to provide you with an expansive exploration, y'all, on the role, or rather, what is meant by the theme in Barbara Ehrenreich's book, otherwise known as Management by Surveillance, as well as corporation. Okay. It'll also help to explain and provide expansive examples of wage slavery. All right. As well as the hidden costs of poverty and so many more ideas. This is such an important documentary for you all to write. It's free. It's available on YouTube. It should also to be captioned. If it's not, please let me know, so that way I can go through and make some adjustments and make sure that it's accessible and open for everybody to actually see and to also experience and learn from. More importantly, I want all of you to actually learn from this. Okay. All right, folks. So I am going to stop the share. See here. Okay. Oh no, heck, I was pixelated again. I told you, heck, sorry. Trash hotel Wi-Fi. Any questions so far? My folks who just joined us. Am I too late? Chris Austin, no. No, you're not too late. I will also post up. You can certainly go back to the link that I had for first of all, and this is a shameless plug. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to garner followers like that. I get absolutely no money from YouTube at all. This is totally for y'all, okay? But if you subscribe, I don't even mean to sound like that, y'all. But listen, if you subscribe, you can go back and rewatch any of the videos that we have done throughout this entire class. Okay, it doesn't matter if you showed up late, on time, or if you didn't show up at all. But if you subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a like. Gosh, I sound like one of those YouTubers right now. It sounds so cringy to me. I'm so sorry. Like I said, I just want to repeat, I do not get paid from YouTube. I don't have nowhere near enough followers. I don't have enough views. So this ain't even nothing like that. This is totally for y'all, okay? Click the little bell in the corner. So you get the message, so you get the notification when I hop on. Oh man, y'all, it's so good to laugh with y'all this morning, man. Or rather this afternoon. Goodness gracious, y'all can tell I'm a little bit sleepy. But yeah, please make sure subscribe, hit the notification bell, all those things. And then what I'll also do is I will go back to our original announcement. I believe you'll see it's under our announcements. I think it's like the second announcement, if I'm not mistaken. But you'll see that I actually go back and then I'll hyperlink each entry of the schedule, the YouTube schedule that we have there. So it's just an easy place, an easy home plate for y'all to just go back and in case some of y'all just are like, man, I ain't subscribing, I ain't doing none of that stuff. That's cool. I don't even I'd like for you to do it because it's so easy, it's convenient. But if y'all don't want to do that, cool. Just go right on back to the announcements and just click the hot link for the prior week that you may have missed or that you want to go back and review. Okay. All right, folks. Enough jokes for the evening. It's evening over here. I'm not sure. I think it's like maybe 6 o'clock, 6:51 over there at y'all's time. I'm gonna wrap it on up. This is the end of our stream. Thank y'all so much for tuning on in. I'm your friendly neighborhood Professor CAG. This here has been In the Class with CAG, Office Hours with CAG. I don't know. I'm still in the market for a whole little name. Who knows? Eventually, I might actually be YouTube, not YouTube famous, but I might actually have some views on YouTube. You feel me? Until then, folks, y'all take care of yourselves and y'all take care of each other. Okay, mask up, hit your hand sanitizer, make sure to wash your hands. Get on around your people, get on around your loved ones, give them a hug, give them a kiss on the cheek, and make sure that you tell them that you love them. All right, folks. Peace. I'll holler at you.